T and XP acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Turrbal and Yagara people, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging.
Welcome to T and XP, a couple's cozy gaming podcast.
We're feeling cozy, and we hope you do too.
My name's Alexander.
And I'm Erin.
T and XP is like a book club for cozy video games. And today we're going to be looking at one of our absolute favorites, Eastshade.
So Eastshade, I'm really glad that we're doing this nice and early. I think it's going to be a really good one. And because I took the lead a bit on unpacking, you are going to have a go for Eastshade today. So tell us a bit about it.
Well, I can tell you everything you need to know in 2 magic words. Are you ready?
I am.
They are cozy, Skyrim.
Yes.
Now, if you recognize both those words, you already know everything you need to know about this game. But just in case you don't, we can go into a little bit more detail with this. So, Eastshade is a 2019 release from Eastshade Studio, the studio that made, well, Eastshade. It's a peaceful, open-world exploration game, where you play as a traveling painter looking to recreate their mother's journey to the eponymous Isle of Eastshade. There's no combat and no danger, but you'll soon discover that one does not simply walk to the famous landmarks of Eastshade. There'll be locals to charm, recipes to learn, and environmental puzzles to solve. Though, admittedly, there's still also a lot of walking. Don't worry though, with its serene atmosphere, stunning landscapes, and an emphasis on art and storytelling, even a stroll through Eastshade's countryside is a joy to play. Well, that's my spiel. Erin, have I forgotten anything?
So many things, yes. And I like that you can't die in Eastshade. The worst thing that can happen to you, and I found this out the hard way, is that you can freeze at night. So until you get like a cozy jacket, or there's certain things that you can do to unlock that sort of ability. I remember just like leaving the pub at night and suddenly my vision's frosting over and then I wake up back in the bed. So
But
nothing bad happens.
Even that's pretty harmless. You just get a message from your character talking to themselves saying like, oh, it's too cold, I need to head back indoors.
Yes, yeah, but you do freeze surprisingly quickly and you do need to figure out how to overcome that to get one of the earlier like puzzles and stuff as well.
Gifted with hindsight, I think there's actually like a warming mead you can drink, and they tell you about that a couple of times, but we just kind of went straight to the equipment solution of getting like a big cozy jacket.
I think you're being very charitable. I think when you say we, you mean me. I played Eastshade first and Alex did a run through later. So he got to benefit from my mistakes, shall we say, as we were playing it as well. I think Cozy Skyrim is a good way to describe it. You know, the idea is you don't choose a profession or anything, though. You're an artist. And I just like that you can slowly or quickly follow puzzles and tasks and adventures that you get given. There's lots of side quests you have to complete, but there's lots of other ones that you just can if you choose to. It's just beautiful. So when people often talked about when they were first playing Skyrim, you just sort of sometimes want to stand in place and look around and look at the sky and look at the landscape. And Eastshade definitely does that as well. I really liked that about it. It was very beautiful and relaxing. And, you know, you're just running around and collecting lots of plants and the water is beautiful. Beautiful water in Eastshade.
So I think it's worth pointing out that, it's a 2019 game and it was made by a pretty small studio.
Yes.
I use the term cozy Skyrim. It's always going to be a bit of an unfair comparison because Skyrim was like this huge monumental game of the era, and
huge studio.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
So this one it's going to be a smaller studio. Some of that's going to be reflected in like the graphical assets and stuff, but they've just done everything really thoughtfully and really beautifully. Like it doesn't feel like they've just kind of spammed trees to make a forest. Everything was very
No.
deliberate and very artisanal in how they've done it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just lots of different story arcs that are really lovely and some really fun tasks as well, like different ways that you can approach the game and how you end up going about solving people's tasks for them as well. I think my favorite one, though, ended up being you end up with this whodunit in the middle of a lake, which is all I'll say about it, but is a lot of fun as well. There's lots of quite standalone tasks, and then there's other ones that are quite interrelated, which was good fun. And yeah,
So, why did you pick Eastshade to be this episode?
When we were planning the podcast, we really just talked about the notion of coziness and what makes a cozy game. And as lots of cozy gamers would know, it's such a diverse definition. We sort of realized that there were games that we still considered cozy, but were not like others. So, we consider something like Unpacking or Eastshade like very, very cozy. But then there's other games that we still consider them a cozy game, and a lot of people would, but they are less so.
Yeah.
So I would say Eastshade, yeah, it's a really cozy game. But then there's other games where we differ a little bit on how cozy we think it is. Like, I don't think Dave the Diver is a particularly cozy game because I don't like the thought of like passing out underwater, whereas you don't mind that so much.
I mean, I'd rather not pass out in water, but
Yeah.
like as it's depicted in the game, it's
Yes,
like pretty
yeah,
cozy.
absolutely. And I mean, running a sushi bar, we'll get to Dave the Diver, but just that idea that there's different things that people find stressful or non-stressful. So I am not a big fan of combat, but I do acknowledge that sometimes it exists in cozy games quite comfortably. Just sort of depends on the nature of that combat as well. So we were sort of talking about it, and we ended up saying that if you rate a game out of 5, maybe the coziness needs its own separate cozy criteria. So 5 is you are so safe and nothing's going to happen to you, and it's probably whimsical and it's going to be just charming as heck. And then 1 might be, yeah, as I said, it would still counts as a cozy game, but there's going to be maybe some more, I don't know, what would you say would make something a bit more of a 1?
Look, I think Dave the Diver, which we'll review later in the season, is a great example. It probably does qualify for a cozy game, but a cozy game with, sharks and harpoon guns and explosions and such. It's gonna hit a little differently to one where you're like a painter sipping tea in the countryside.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, both cozy games.
But I think I'd agree with what you said. Eastshade is just this fantastic exemplar of cozy games.
Yeah.
If you ever wanted to just kind of sum up what the genre is, I would really just encourage someone to play this game and give it a shot
Yeah.
and just see what the cozy genre has to offer.
Yeah, you've got lovely nature walks through landscape. You have brewing tea. You have bicycle rides if you want to get a bicycle. You can drink tea and then ride your bicycle, which without spoilers is a pretty fun experience.
Well, I don't think it's much of a spoiler, but yes, the game uses the term tea quite liberally.
Mm.
Basically, some of these teas do have psychotropic side effects, and it does give you creativity and inspiration
Oh,
points
that's
having
true.
this
That's true.
tea.
Yes. Well, okay. Well, speaking of inspiration points, tell me a bit more about the game mechanics. Like, how does one play Eastshade?
Okay, so it'll be a first person view, so you never actually see your character. And yes, you'll wander through the countryside. The only game metric is inspiration, which is how many paintings you can make, and your inventory. Beyond that, everything else is kind of taken care of in world, and it'll just be down to, completing quests, charming locals, and sometimes crafting new gear to get access to a new spot.
Mm, mm.
So, the main quest is just to recreate this amazing journey your mother went on. And just as part of her final wish is she just wants you to paint these landmarks that's really, kind of captured her heart.
Mm. Mum's Euro trip.
Exactly. And of course, it's never quite that easy. And so, to gain access to a city, you're going to need letters of recommendation. And sometimes to get to other spots, you're going to need to do personal favors. Sometimes the progression's kind of locked through completing a side quest. And it's not always immediately apparent that you need to find this guy's amulet in order to access the other side of a river or something.
Yes, but worth it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But yes, like we said, there's no combat. The main thing, the main heroic skill you have is going to be painting. And that's very easy that you just set up an easel, you press a button, and it's basically just a slightly tailored screenshot. And then it'll reproduce that on the in-game canvas.
It takes some art to tailor that screenshot, so I won't have you dissing my Eastshade artistic skills as well. One thing we wanted to talk about when we were setting up the podcast was accessibility in games and the idea that some games are easier and harder to play just on a physical level, whether it is your hands on a game controller or a keyboard or your reflexes needed, even certain vision elements as well. So with Eastshade, how would you unpack some of that accessibility?
It doesn't have many in-game accessibility features, but there's no combat, there's no difficult timing. You can do everything at your own pace, and controls are pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
worst that's going to happen is sometimes you'll just sit there muddling through a few in-screen menus, bringing up a map instead of bringing up the crafting menu.
Yes, which I do anyway with no accessibility issues, but just because that's just me playing games. Yeah, no, and even though it's an artistic game, you could play this theoretically, you could play this if you were colorblind and things like that. I know some modern games have now put in things like colorblind features into their games, and you wouldn't really need to worry about that with Eastshade, I imagine. And I guess the idea of accessibility being something that's interesting to us is something we might unpack a little bit maybe in the next episode,
Yes.
that side of it, because like last time we talked a little bit about why cozy gaming, and we've introduced our cozy oh, have we really introduced our cozy scale? What else do people need to know? Like, what's a 3 then on the cozy scale?
Oh, that's tough. Like, yeah, we've
Yeah.
kind of established it. Maybe Dave and I would be a 1, and we
Mm,
established this would be a 5.
mm. Do we have to define it now, or do we let that sort of unfold as we put games in categories, do you think?
I think there's always going to be a certain je ne sais quoi about a cozy scale.
Absolutely. It's very subjective.
Yes, and I think when you try and reduce something to like a hard criteria, then you kind of miss out on some of the feel, some of the vibe to it.
Mm. And I think the other thing as well is that even if something rates lower on the cozy scale, it doesn't mean that we don't actually think it's a fantastic game.
Exactly.
So, what do you think is part of the goal and the vibe of Eastshade? What are those common themes that are running throughout the game that people should look out for?
Like I said, it's a bit like Skyrim, so there's going to be some exploration, there's going to be some gathering and crafting, but that's not really the focus of the game. This one, it's much more celebration about both your artistic endeavors and also just the people in the game. There are some beautiful side stories and cute little narrative arcs of the people you meet. Also, just in the finale, the epilogue, when you return home, you've got this beautiful, touching correspondence from the people you've helped, and you've seen how it's kind of shaped their lives and stuff.
That's true. It's true. I really felt like Eastshade was a celebration of the journey and the landscape, sightseeing. But I think you're right. It does end up having that very classic voyage, journey, holiday, adventure, all those kind of different words, whether it's just a vacation for the artist protagonist, but just that idea that we might go to a location because it's beautiful, but sometimes the best memories are the ones that involve people. That's very sweet.
And sometimes the real treasure is the friends you made along the way.
Ah, absolutely. But sometimes it's just the treasure you find, which you don't find
Yes,
in Eastshade
you
because there's
don't
no
find a
treasure.
heap, no.
No,
You are an artist, and so trying to scrape together enough money is going to be a recurring theme of the game.
that's true. That's true.
That eventually get to the point where you can start unlocking commissions and doing paintings on request for another more famous and wealthy artist who no longer wants to do realistic paintings.
Classic, classic. So we've had a look at the cozy scale, and we agree that Eastshade is very cozy, maybe like a 5. It's right up there in terms of pleasant coziness. But in terms of just a general rating out of 5, in terms of playability, game mechanics, narrative, storyline, all that kind of thing, artwork, what would you give Eastshade a rating out of 5?
I would still give it a 4 out of 5 without missing a beat.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
So it does have some rough edges, but I think it's important to be forgiving of these, especially when you're looking at a slightly dated indie game. And I think the inevitable comparisons to Skyrim, which I know I've done earlier in this episode, that's never going to be entirely fair. That said, the game does have a few rough edges to it. Some of the user interface is a bit clunky, and sometimes there's these big, impossible leaps of logic trying to work out why a side quest is going to let you progress further in the game. And I think sometimes it doesn't signpost that very clearly that you need to do one quest in order to progress another completely unrelated one.
Okay,
That
okay.
said, these are very small issues in what is a genuinely beautiful, lovely, relaxing game that I'd heartily recommend to anyone.
Yeah, yeah, same. I also like Eastshade for its replayability. You can absolutely play this game and then play it again. And even though you'd know how to achieve tasks for people and everything, I still think you'd potentially get a lot out of it playing it again. And I always think that replayability is always a really good sign of a great game as well.
It's also a sign that this particular game was so much about kind of enjoying the journey rather than just, trying to complete a quest or grind something out.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the other game that this studio has played is actually called Leaving Lindau, which is one of the towns in Eastshade. And it's only a mini game. I think it takes like 20 minutes to play. And I immediately went and got Leaving Lindau after I played Eastshade because I was not ready to leave Eastshade. Yeah, it was just too lovely and too beautiful to tear myself away straight away. So I think that's a good sign as well.
And look, this is one of the things I really loved about the game, that if you were a hardcore Skyrim fanatic and you just need one last taste or one more fix, then this is the game for you.
Mhm.
And if you're a really casual gamer or you're new to gaming and you're looking for something to kind of cut your teeth on or get a feel for it, this is still the game for you.
Yeah, it's very lovely.
So this isn't just a game review though. Part of this is supposed to be the Cozy Book Club experience. So if you're going to just say, what was your favorite part of the game? What is it? And why is it the little murder mystery?
Oh, the little murder mystery that I mentioned before. Yeah. I guess it was, well, as you're playing Eastshade, there's all these parts of the map that you can see. You can see across the river, you can see the city, you can see down the hill across here, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, when I just saw the island on the lake, I just thought, oh, that's really beautiful. It was one of those things where you're like, oh, I bet it's not playable. I bet it will end up being just a bit of scenery or something like that in the game. You could absolutely accidentally miss this if you're playing the game. It's quite a standalone quest, but it was just so, I don't know, it was really delightful. You arrive on a dark and stormy night and you're the untrusted stranger who ends up helping out and solving the mystery. And
We should
um,
point out the mystery is not an actual murder, it's a
no, no.
book thief.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, a
But
very mild mystery, but the
even
vibes were there. It was good.
the vibes are there, and even then, there's a few tongue-in-cheek things in game where you're talking to people and they're like, "Oh, have you solved the murder? I mean, the thief yet?"
Yes, yeah. So no, I liked that little pocket genre that they decided to pop in there as well, and I think it's just a really good example of some of the ambience building that they do. I don't want to spoil it, but there are other areas and moments where, yeah, they just do atmosphere building really beautiful. A couple of times in the forest and a couple of times up on the plains and things like that as well. I'm also going to recommend any video game that actively encourages you to go find and sit in natural hot springs. There's like 5 or 6 across the landscape, and if you go and find and sit in all of them, then you get an achievement for that, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things it did really well. There's this celebration of travel, among other things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope you really enjoyed our babbling on, frankly, about Eastshade and just why we've enjoyed it, why we think it's a cozy game. We hope you join us next week where we end up looking at another very cozy game by a Spanish studio. I don't know if that will be an interesting enough teaser for some of you, but we really look forward to talking about more of our favorite games next time.
Are we happy to say the name of the game for our next episode?
Oh, I don't know. We're still like setting it all up. I don't know. Yeah, let's, because then
Yes,
if
because
people
we
like
can
to
go into
play,
spoilers that way. So, yeah.
well, not even that, but if people, like a book podcast or a movie podcast, if people want to play along at home, then they can go and do a playthrough or a replay through as well.
Yeah, now
So,
this is supposed to be a book club. We should give people a chance to read the book.
yes, absolutely. So, if you do want to go and play the game for next time, we are going to be looking at Gris or Gris, depending on how you like to pronounce it.
That's all we have time for today. Thanks for listening to T&XP, a couple's cozy gaming podcast. Stay cozy.
Like a monkey in a hot spring.